Alright, welcome to another interior real estate photography tutorial. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to fix common issues that you will come across. For example, if you look right here at this stove range, we can see my tripod leg in the reflection of the stove. I'm going to show you a quick way to eliminate that. And up here, we have some paint touch-up issues that we're going to be able to correct and fix and blend that in to make it look like it was never there. Well, this was an Airbnb that they needed to get up and listed. They were going to be painting it later that day or the next day, but the only day I was able to get there was the day before that. And so things like that you're able to fix as long as they're going to correct them before they have guests or if it's going to go on the market. So let's get started. This is the ambient layer, and I have not done any corrections with it. Looks like I exposed it pretty well. We had a decent amount of daylight coming in, although it was cloudy, overcast, snowy outside, so we were really struggling. So there are other lights in the house on, and I'm going to show you that once we get to the flash image, I actually have my camera right here with the flash on top of the camera, and then I was able to move over to this room and pop a flash. So here is just a quick look at what my camera looks like in the setup that I use, and then I'm able to be mobile and run around and do my other flash pops. And when you have a flash on top of the camera, that's also lighting the space near the camera, and it's easier to blend, because if you don't have that flash on top of the camera, you are left with, it's going to be way too difficult to blend your other flash pops in, because now it's dark over here. So that's why we always run with a flash on top of the camera or next to the camera. And I just find it's easier to have one unit to move around the house, and that's why I've chosen to put my flash on top of the camera. All right, so let's get back to the ambient layer, and let's just do my single bump here. And really all I'm doing is adjusting the highlights. I'm adjusting the shadows. I drop the blacks down a little bit, bump the clarity. And what the clarity does is kind of add a little bit of sharpness to it, in a sense. So once you have basically got a rough adjustment of your image, that initial image, I'm going to show you this. Come up here to the plus sign next to presets, click on that, create preset, title it whatever you want, make sure all these are checked, and then hit create, and it'll create it over here in your list of presets. So that way you're not having to adjust all these sliders for every single image that you come across. So let's move on to the flash image, which is this one. And again, that flash image, I had the flash on top of the camera lighting this room, and then I moved over here with my 8200 back in here somewhere and just lit up this stairwell right here. So let's do our initial bump there. I'm not going to worry about white balance. I'm going to show you two things in this video. Luminosity mode, which most times doesn't work, especially if you have wood cabinets and dark scenarios like this. I'll show you why I don't like luminosity mode, but I have a method that works actually even better. So I'm going to hold down Command. This one is already selected, and we're going to select this one. Right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Alright, so once both of your layers have been loaded into Photoshop, again, just make sure that your ambient layer is sitting on top, and we have our flash layer underneath. I'm just toggling off this little eyeball here. Okay, so we can see a difference. We've basically eliminated a lot of these shadows that were created with the ambient layer. So again, whether you think you have enough light in a nearby room or not, always just do your flash pop, unless you're positive that the ambient layer or the ambient light is lighting it. And again, that's another tip. This is why I typically run with lights off, is because then you're able to use the ambient layer if the room is lit well enough with the ambient light. So if this was lit with tungsten lighting, which in this case it's not, but sometimes it is, if you have all the lights on in the house, you're not able to use that light anyway because it doesn't match your flash lighting. And so you're having to light multiple rooms anyway with your flash, whereas sometimes if you have a house that has a lot of natural light, you're able to get away with just using the natural light instead of going over into that room and popping a flash. So keep that in mind, as long as you discuss this with the realtor, because some of them are just insistent on having all the lights on. So you gotta, maybe discuss that with them if you haven't worked with that realtor before, or if you are just starting to test the waters with lights off. Some of them might not want you to do that, but if you can reassure them that it's going to produce better colors, which it does, as long as the lights, if the house has 5,000 Kelvin lighting, then you're good to go, obviously. But most people do not put 5,000 Kelvin lighting in their house. It's just too bright, I've found, typically. So, okay, let's start. So what I'm going to do with this image is it looks like we got a nice blend. We're going to, okay, so first, before we even get moving, let me show you what happens when we decide to go luminosity mode. It really just doesn't do what we think it's going to do. Actually, in this situation, it doesn't really do a whole lot of anything. It kind of just does some weird funky stuff with the orange on the cabinets. If you can see the difference there, it actually makes them oranger. And does it pull out any other color cast? That's typically, if you notice right here with normal and then the luminosity, it does clear it up a little bit. I'm going to show you a different method though. So we're going to just leave it as normal. We're going to take the opacity and bring it down to about 50%. Okay, so what you can do is if your windows get washed out too much, we're in this situation because our ambient layer didn't wash them out too much, we're going to be okay at the 50%. But what you can do is just hit the mask here, make sure it's selected to black, brush tool selected, flow is at 5%, opacity at 100, and just paint back in that flash layer from underneath. And you'll have to do this more if you have really harsh glaring windows from your ambient layer. You'll need to bring back in that flash layer so your windows aren't blown out. All right, so this looks pretty good to me. We can actually, because remember, we can eliminate this shadow on the wall here by using 100% of the flash layer underneath, and just like that, we got rid of that shadow. And that looks really good to me. All right, so looks like we're pretty much done. Let's go ahead and select these. We'll flatten the image. Now, here is one way to get rid of some color cast issues. I'm going to show you how to create a preset in this tutorial also, but I'm going to walk you through this process so you can actually watch this video over again, follow my steps on how to do this. So, what we need to do is your entire image, if we were just to smear all those colors together, we want to have medium gray or middle gray. So how we're going to do that is how to get this entire image to middle gray is we're going to Command J to duplicate it. Make sure the top layer is selected. We're going to come up here to filter and then blur and then average. So this is going to take an average of all the colors. And notice how it has like a salmon orangish color to it. That's because there's too much orange in the image and we need to correct that. So we're going to come down here to our curves adjustment layer, choose the middle eyedropper, click anywhere in the image, and it's going to give you that gray color. So we X that out. Now we can just shut this layer off right there. And this is what a correct white balance image will look like. Let's toggle that off. Notice the orange color cast if you toggle this on and off. Now, sometimes you're going to notice maybe it's just your eyes doing it, and it could be just because you're so used to seeing it like this that when you get the correct color, it might look a little too blue. And if it does tend to do that, or if it tends to shift it too much, just take the opacity slider and bring that down just a little bit. Wherever, because even at like 75%, you toggle that on and off, that's still a drastic change, and it makes it look so much nicer. So let's back out. I'm going to Command Z to undo all this. And I'm going to show you how to create a preset so you don't have to go through all these steps every single time. Alright, so we got our background layer. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a preset. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to come up here to the play sign where your actions live. And we're going to click this plus sign. We're going to create an action. I want mine to be function. What did I have it? Function 2. You can function key. You can select a function. We're going to just call it function 4. I know I don't have anything selected in that. And what can we call? I don't even call it action 1. That's fine. And we're going to hit record. The shortcut for action will hide the shortcut for the paste command. Okay. So it's recording right now. We're going to command J to duplicate that layer. Filter, blur, average. You're going to walk through these steps. We're going to choose that curves adjustment layer. Click anywhere on the image. Let's X that out and shut that layer off. That's good enough. Let's hit stop and we should be good to go. Now, I'm going to back out of this and I'm going to try to hit what I do, function 4, and there it did it. Just like that. So now every time you want to do that correction, all you have to do is create a preset, give it a function, and hit that function key, and it's going to do that for you automatically. It makes your workflow so much faster. I highly recommend you do that. Now that we got that out of the way, we're going to flatten this image again, because remember, we have to correct that paint up at the top. We'll do that first. Command J to duplicate the layer. Now, let's zoom in here so we can see what we're working on here. Now, the best thing to do in this situation is I like to use the patch tool. So what I want to do is I just want to highlight the issue that needs to be fixed, and we're going to slide this down and make sure you line it up just like that and let off. Look at that. You can barely even tell. So you got to highlight what you want to move, and then we got to line up that trim. See that? I'm just moving this, line it up, and you got to be steady. There you go, let off. Come to this next one. As long as the shadows are all the same, you got to make sure it's totally out of the image. And then it's not going to be 100% perfect, but when you back out, we'll toggle that on and off. It fixed it. It's as if they went through and painted it. All right, and we're going to basically do that same thing. Let's zoom in to eliminate our tripod leg. Let's see. We're going to select the tripod leg. And again, this isn't going to be perfect, but we got to shift it this way, trying to match the tile floor reflection. And again, it's reflection. Now, if you did want to get this piece, we can actually select where we want that seam in the tile and bring this down, basically duplicating that just like that. So as far as the reflection goes, that looks pretty awesome to me. If we just toggle that on and off, we did a pretty awesome job in my opinion. And that's going to be good enough, especially when you're zoomed back out just like that. So let's flatten this image. I'm going to command S to save it. All right, so once you have your layer back into Lightroom, again, just like I showed you on the initial preset, I create an interior final preset. And all that did was, again, bring those highlights down if I feel like I needed to. I drop the blacks. And again, I always do just final adjustments just like that. And what I like to do is, because we're working with multiple images, I right-click, set flag, and then flag it, and then you can move on to your next image. All right, so there you go. Leave me a comment if you have any questions on any of this stuff that we went over, and I'll be more than happy to help you. I'm here to help you grow your real estate photography business. We'll see you in the next tutorial, guys. Bye-bye.